Question. Have you ever thought about how a Bible is made? I don't just mean like how's it printed and bound up, although that's interesting too. I mean, like how did this go from being not a thing in the super distant past to being something that is so prevalent that it's the best-selling book of all time, available in every modern language, so commonplace that there's an average of 4.2 copies per American household? How does that story happen? Well, in this video, I want to consider that, and if it seems a little bit overwhelming, I think we can simplify it by breaking it down into two neat, tidy little parts. Part one of our journey of how a Bible is made, I think just needs to look at how it was written down in the first place and assembled in its original languages. And then part two of that journey takes us from the translation process up through the layout and design and binding and manufacturing and making available of the Bible in a modern language that you and I can read. So let's start with the first half of the story and see if we can figure out how a Bible is made. Christians believe God superintended the writing, editing, and curating of the Bible we still read today. It all started thousands of years ago when God inspired individuals to write down stories, teachings, poems, and warnings that would reveal things about God and His plan. His followers carefully copied these documents and treated them as treasured items in each household. And eventually, this collection of Jewish writings was translated into Greek, which was the Bible of Jesus' day. Jesus quoted from these Old Testament scriptures extensively, and then shortly after his death and resurrection, the New Testament began to take shape. 4 accounts of Jesus' life, the story of the works of his disciples, and letters to early churches quickly came to be regarded by the community of faith as being inspired by God. As diverse Christians from around the Roman world connected with each other, they discovered they were all using the same writings. Much later, various Christian institutions would formalize this already long agreed upon list. In the 1500 years after the life of Jesus, up to the invention of the printing press, Christians diligently copied the Bible by hand. Now, naturally, a few small variants appeared over the centuries and began to show up in predictable patterns that are easy to trace. And because we've got around 25,000 partial or complete hand copies, scholars can compare all the manuscripts and work backwards to determine what the very first authors wrote. The result of this process is a complete and accurate version of the Bible in its original languages. So now we've got our complete Bible manuscript in the original language. In this case, this is the New Testament side in Greek. But this is a long ways from this, a Bible that you can read in English. And the process by which we go from this to this is way above my pay grade. So I reached out to people who know what they're doing. I contacted a bunch of different companies that make Bibles. And immediately, one of those got right back to me, and that is Tyndale Publishers. And they were like, yes, for sure. You can come to our place. You can meet with everybody. Tell us what you need. Let's do this video. This is awesome. And to even go above and beyond, they were like, hey, let us kick in some to support what you're doing at the 10-Minute Bible Hour, which I thought was really, really cool of them. And so I took them up on the offer. And now you and I are headed to Carroll Stream, Illinois, to Tyndale Publishers, to their headquarters, to learn about this home stretch in the Bible making process. My contact at Tyndale is this gentleman here. His name's Jim Jewell. He was a treat to hang out with. He met me up front, started showing me around the whole place, and he introduced me to a bunch of the key players in Tyndale's Bible making team. But before that, he gave me a little bit of background on Tyndale's founder, Ken Taylor, who came up with the New Living Translation, which is a popular modern translation, as well as the guy from whom Tyndale got its name, William Tyndale, a 16th century English scholar at the time of the Reformation who was burned at the stake for defying the church and translating the Bible into English.
Well, he wasn't really burned at the stake. He was strangled first and then burned at the stake.
So much better.
Yeah, he was dead by the time he burned. But anyway, he paid the price for being bold and breaking convention, disobeying in a way the rules, and to make the Bible available in English.
Again, the next step in our process here is to get from an original language manuscript to an English Bible, in this case, the New Living Translation, which is what Tyndale works with. And to understand how that process works, I sat down with Dr. Dan Block, one of the Old Testament scholars who was a part of the translation team, and I asked him what the philosophy of his translation team was.
Ruthless determination to let the text take me where it wants me to go.
What he's describing here can be difficult to conceptualize without seeing it. So I asked Dr. Block if he could come up with an example specifically of a difficult translation decision, and he cited a passage from Judges 18:30, which says that the tribe of Dan set up an idol, including the son of Moses. But the problem is that a lot of manuscripts say that it was the son of Manasseh and not Moses. So how did they figure out which one to go with when they translated it into English?
This is the name Moshe. They put an N in there, and what was MSH has become MNSH, Manasseh. The rule is you're not allowed to add or subtract from a text. What the scribes did is, we can't have Moses, grandson, participating in this idolatry like this. So to protect the reputation of Moses, they put in a tiny little superscripted nun, N. And they changed it to the name of the most wicked king in Israel. And that's what this wickedness in the book of Judges was all about.
So this is the kind of work that is going in around the table. This seemingly little subtle thing that most people wouldn't know what to do with at all. What you're suggesting is that it was worth the friendly, collegial discourse back and forth around this table because you feel that if you don't have that conversation, the full meaning of the text and the narrative flow of the Old Testament doesn't come through.
And I think we've actually got the author's intent. I am convinced we got the author's intent. And that's what we should be hearing. What does the author want us to hear? And we work until we get that.
At this point in our story, thanks to the painstaking work of brilliant people like Dr. Block, we've now gone from a raw original language version of the Bible to a raw English language version of the Bible. But as you can see, this is still a little bit unwieldy. And so there's a ton of steps still to go in getting from here to a version of this that you would actually use. And the next person who sees us through this process that Jim introduced me to was a gal named Amy.
I'm Amy.
She's the associate publisher, and pretty much everything about going from here to here falls under her purview.
I'm not doing all of that myself. I'm working with the whole Bible team.
I asked Amy to walk me through the idea development process, starting with where the ideas themselves come from.
We have ideas come from multiple fronts, including, just our own iterations of products we already have, but also new ideas for brand new Bibles that come to us from outside or internally. And so part of my job is vetting those ideas at the very beginning.
I asked Amy what key things she looks for when she's assessing a new idea for a Bible to determine whether it makes sense to move forward with it or not.
So we have to look at the marketing piece and see, is this something that's likely to be a success from a sales perspective, from a positioning perspective in terms of marketing? Are we going to be able to set this apart and help it stand out in some way among the Bibles that are out there, and ultimately serve someone who needs to be served by a Bible product? We're a Bible publisher who's really, really focused on understanding, helping people understand the Bible and making the scriptures accessible to people, all kinds of people out there. So is this something that's going to help us do that?
All right, quick time out. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. I realize that we're using words here like positioning and product and market when we're talking about the Bible, which is sacred, and that seems kind of crass on its surface. But one of the things that I've learned from being around this for a little while and that I learned while visiting Tyndale is seeing what goes into it. It makes it really clear. This costs money. The Bibles are valuable, and the work that goes into doing it well is expensive. You got to buy time from people. You got to buy resources. You got to buy energy and creativity to make that stuff happen and to get it in the hands of the people who want it. So while there are some groups who use donations and philanthropy to make very basic Bibles and then donate those very basic Bibles, which is an awesome way to get Bibles in people's hands, I think there is also definitely a need for the force of the demand of people who want Bibles and want Bibles that are put together in interesting and creative ways to provide different resources along with the text. This is also a really good way to make Bibles happen.
And then we might be talking about months of, research and thought and development. So we put our thoughts together and bring that typically to our sales team to get some additional input from them.
Jim, the gentleman who's been showing me around Tyndale, it's his job to have his finger on the pulse of the market and to think through what products might make sense.
You got to show them something different, I think. You have to show them that there's a Bible product that has something that's a little new. Maybe even just that color is cool. We totally propelled the Inspire brand, which is the coloring Bible.
Okay. So you get like the Levite and his concubine, David beheading Goliath, Noah in the tent, like stuff like that, or more.
That sounds like the men's Inspire Bible. That doesn't exist yet.
Okay. Once Amy and Jim and their respective teams determined that a Bible concept is on mission with what Tyndale is going for and likely to be economically viable, they pass the project along to this gentleman I'm meeting right here named Mark.
I work in the editorial department, and it's our job to shape the content that goes into these Bibles to accompany the Bible text. Straight text Bibles, different study editions, devotional editions. We've created Bibles for new believers, for people in recovery, for men, for women in different life stages, for children, and we do reject quite a few ideas that come in. And they can get pretty strange.
I asked Mark for an example of a Bible concept that didn't work out, and he told me about one where they were going to arrange all of the books of the Bible in alphabetical order.
We actually did it, and it was a real bomb.
Oh, you made that?
Yes, we did.
How long does it take you from conception to I can buy it in a store to get one of these Bibles done?
Just doing a straight text typesetting takes about a year of time plus all the manufacturing time. But as soon as you start interspersing content that needs to be designed to play well with the Bible text and with all the other feature types within that Bible, that's a complex process. It's a bit like a puzzle to put together, and it takes input from design and then the typesetter and editorial to make sure that all the pieces work well together. And that usually takes 2 to 3 years to get that done.
What are you looking for in a Bible concept?
Well, we want to know that they thought through how the entire Bible speaks to this concern. We don't, if their content all falls within 3 books, Romans, Matthew, and Isaiah, it's not really an idea for a Bible. It needs to be a Bible that really does have Bible-wide concern.
If I'm hearing right, at this point in the process of making a Bible, we have an idea. That idea has an initial thumbs up from the big concept production people. It has an initial thumbs up from the marketing people. It has some ideas, an initial thumbs up from the editorial content people. So I asked Amy, what do we still lack to make this thing official?
From there, we'll go to our pub committee. We'll take the idea to them, hopefully get their approval. At that point is when the project really becomes visible internally, because it's official. It's going to happen.
This is exciting. We're going to make a Bible. We're moving forward. That's great. And now that the project is official, we got to figure out how to go from this big, ugly, unwieldy thing to this really sleek, beautiful, carefully designed thing.
Matt, Jennifer. Well, I'm the Bible art director. I get to design the Bible, but I get to help others that are working with me to work on the Bible.
Do you work with the layout and design side, like the actual text on the page?
The text on the page, everything, all the details.
How much is too much stuff on one page? Do you have a philosophy of that?
Oh boy, that depends on the Bible. For this Teen Life Application Study Bible that we're doing, we're trying to supply as many imagery and things for the teens as possible, but also we took out some of the imagery and text that we thought it's great, but it's already so crowded and we want them to get the best of the best. So we editorial and design and everyone looking at it tried to keep it as simple as possible.
It sounds like there are a ton of cross-departmental decisions in terms of the extra biblical material in a study Bible, the notes and the other business down here. So to be clear, whether we're talking about review, proofreading, editing, art and design, the Bible text stays the same. But it looks like they got to bounce things back and forth between editorial and the writing departments and art quite a bit to make the rest of this stuff integrate really neatly to communicate one cohesive point.
But it's hard because there's so much good stuff you want to put, but then, as you could tell, there's not that much room.
What is the goal of the way you lay out a text?
All right, well, for this one, and we did something similar to the Illustrated Study Bible, we have the different parts of the Bible in different colors. So that's one. So there's wayfinding with that. So you've got Israel's history is all going to be in the orange, and you're starting the section, and it's very clear that this is part of that section. So everything in this next section is orange. And then we wanted all the Bible text to have white behind it. So it's very clear that anything with white is Bible text, and then anything in the other colors is extra. So everything across the bottom is the study notes, and so
I think that's brilliant. One of my biggest hesitations with study Bibles in general as a notion is if the medium is the message, it can send the message to the reader. This is all inspired. It's all authoritative, but it's not all equally authoritative. And even the way you've set this apart actually communicates that.
Yeah, the hierarchy is in fonts and picking the sans serif and picking what they're going to see first. And we've been using Bible Sans and Bible Serif, which is a font that other translations are also using, that was designed by 2K, and that's easy and really is able to get the font, as many letters in there as possible and still be legible. Like our Illustrated Study Bible that has all those details and all those beautiful imagery, and able to take that information from editorial and make it even more clear with, a little icon and all those different things to make Noah's Ark and make all these other things come to life.
How come Bibles are always like this? Is there a reason that paper is the deal?
If we're going to do a thicker paper, it bulks up the entire Bible so much. It's shocking.
Like double it? Triple it?
Yeah. It's, and when we see this, our Life Application Study Bible that's this big, when we see the papers come in from the printer, it comes in like this big on a normal paper. So when we're looking through all the proofs, it's huge.
What do we call this kind of paper?
Bible paper.
In addition to there being just so many words, there's also all kinds of moving parts in the art, the maps, the chapter divisions, stuff like that. There is a lot that could go wrong with a document of this size. And so I guess it makes sense that you'd need to have somebody take this from Jen and the editorial team and go through a massive proofreading process. And the person in charge of all of that is this lady right here named Mildred.
I read a lot of Bible content, and I fix all the commas, and I make sure all the heresy is cut out. A big study Bible like this would probably take me about 2 years. Before that...
Record scratch. 2 years?
Yeah, you're reading through it start to finish multiple times. Mark all of the little changes that need to be made, and something needs to be italicized, something spelled incorrectly. One of these sets I ended up going into 19 rounds. This is like a mini version of what we do for a big study Bible. So like proportion wise, we're talking this turns into this. So just imagine like the
wait, what turns into what?
So this is what I have that I'm working on, and then this is what comes in from the printer.
Oh my goodness, I just want to feel the weight difference.
So when I work on one of these, you can imagine the files or the piles of papers in my office are as tall as I am for this kind of project. So
do you get a list of like, make sure we don't say these heresies? Or do you just get copies of the creeds and you put them up on the wall of your office and you just read the thing and then look at the creed and make sure that they match? How do you know what's heresy?
I should print out the creeds. I usually just Google them. But I definitely don't get a list of things to look for. It's just all of my aggregate knowledge of things that are heretical. So yeah, the creeds, that's where the heresy often slips in, is with creedal stuff. So like the way we talk about the Trinity, there are very specific ways that are right and very specific ways that are wrong. And so, very unintentionally, sometimes authors will slip in a heresy. So I try to
It's modalism, Patrick.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I do. Oh my word, so perfect. We have, a structure in place for that. So as the lowly copy editor, I don't make all the calls with the author. Usually I'll send it to the editor who's working on the big picture stuff above me, and I will phrase a very polite, very gentle query to them and say, hey, didn't this happen in, with factual things, it's like, didn't this happen in this year? Can we double check that? Or with that kind of stuff, it's like, I know what the author meant, but do you think it could be taken wrong? What if we rephrase it like this? And then I'll offer a suggestion, whatever. So then the editor will make their determination, and if they agree with me, they'll pass it along to the author, and then they will make the call.
So if you come across a word that you're like, maybe that meant that when they put this on paper or in the youth of this author, but just as a heads up, like now part of my job is to hang out on Reddit and 4chan and know what those words mean, and that's not going to play well now. Do you ever get to have those conversations about just how will this play for a modern audience?
Yes, there's a lot of that, especially when we do these updates for Bibles that originally came out a long time ago, were originally written a long time ago. So in terms of like language, like you were mentioning, like slang, means different things now, or even just ideas like things that would not have come across as insensitive 30 years ago might now. So that is definitely a big thing that I'm looking for.
After all of that work, we're still just dealing with the inside of the document. We haven't even touched what goes into this part yet. And to learn more about how that outside of the Bible happens, we're heading back over to talk with Jen in design.
Such a privilege to work on God's Word, and we want it to be beautiful. A Bible like this, we make sure that there's room for imprinting. So not all of our Bibles have room for imprinting, but if somebody wants to give it to their loved one and wants their name on it, we make sure that a lot of them have that room. And this is our Celtic cross that is also coming out soon. So this binding has nothing in it right now, but it will.
Oh, that's an empty Bible.
Yeah.
I've never seen one of these before. Look at that. Like, this is one of those places where I think this would return void. Like there's you got straight up nothing. You said like 5 printing and binding terms in those last series of remarks that I've never heard of, and I have no idea what they mean. So one of them was heat stamp? Impression?
So this
what is that?
is a heat stamp. And then this is a metallic ink. And then this is a foil. So this has a heat stamp with a metallic ink, and this has a heat stamp with a foil.
What's the difference between the two?
Metallic ink is something we pick out of these Pantone books. And then a foil stamp is something much more opaque. That means you can't see through it. So you're picking an actual foil that they put on there, as opposed to an ink that just like you would use. I use this ink inside of a Bible if I wanted to print a 2-color Bible or something. Does that make sense? You'd see all these different options with all these different textures and metallics.
Oh yeah, you get the feel and everything.
Yeah. And then I saw you in your video talk about lay flat bindings, and we've got those different things too.
Oh no, you saw the video.
I saw the video.
Yeah, the one where I'm like
criticizing the life applications. In the Bible, it says the first person that was filled with the Holy Spirit was the man working on the tabernacle. And I'm like, oh, that's so good. Yeah, he wants it to be beautiful, and we want it to be beautiful because we love him, and not for our glory, for his glory, and for the new believer that's reading this. So we want that whole experience to be like, this isn't just another book. This is the most important book, and having it be beautiful is awesome.
This is fun. We've gone all the way in our journey here from there not being a Bible to, okay, now we have one. There's a new expression of the Bible physically. We sent it off to the printers. We got it back. We have tangible Bibles. But this is still a ways away from actually getting into the hands of people, because first you have to let people know that this exists and convince them that they might want to buy one and get their hands on it. Jim, once again, is the guy in charge of letting people know about all the different Bibles that are available. Where are you going to do that? Magazines, digital, like pop-up ads? I mean, what's the game plan?
Yes.
Okay.
So
what am I missing?
Oh, you're missing a whole lot.
Well, I assume so. I'm not any good at this. I'm asking the guy who is.
You've got print media. We do radio, social media. We do a lot of general digital advertising, so you get your banners and things on websites and all over the place. Email blasts a lot too.
What's the weirdest place you advertise to go out beyond the boundaries of your normal Bible buying crowd that you see any kind of results from?
We're all over TikTok. It's interesting to me because I have girls in that, I have daughters in that.
Same here. Yeah.
They're not allowed on TikTok.
No, mine neither.
But there's a whole lot of girls and a whole lot of people on TikTok, and we want to reach them with the Bible. I remember early on feeling a call where somebody was just tearing into me because marketing was not something that a Christian organization should have. That idea that it's somehow evil, which, we've gone through that with radio and with, every new medium.
Your sign in front of your church is marketing.
Yeah. What was John the Baptist?
He's a hype man.
He was the front man. Yeah, he was a PR guy. We push it hard. We try to be compelling and to I'm always looking for the real superlative about a product that we put out, because I want people to know that, because we worked hard to get it in there.
The last point of contact with the Bible for a Bible publisher is distributing, is getting it out to the people who want it. I suppose I probably imagined that this took a little bit of work and cleverness to get it done, but I was not prepared at all for the enormity of this task. This is David, who is the warehouse manager, and he was kind enough to walk me through this in a way that I could understand.
This is where, when pick tickets come, when orders got entered in the system and customer service released them to the warehouse, this is where the picking starts. So we have 4 different zones. This is zone A.
Dude, is this your first day at work ever?
Yes.
And then somebody's filming it?
Yeah.
Like, that's just ruthless, man.
I just saw the camera and I'm like, all right, this is happening.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this?
16 years.
16 years?
Yes.
So you know this place like the back of your hand, both of you guys.
This is my house.
This one is a parcel order, so it's shipping ground. This one is a freight order. In this case, this is an A, so any ticket that starts with a C will go directly to zone C. If it's B, it goes to zone B, and so on and so forth.
As we're walking around here, there are 2 things that really stood out to me. One, there are so many little intricacies to how this all works, and conveyor belts running everywhere, but they seem to have it all whipped. And 2, everybody was happy, and so many of these folks had been working here for a very long time. I mean, decades.
But the most important part is the people. The people do a really, really good job coming every day, rising to the challenge.
This is missional for us. We love the Word of God. We want to help people understand it. We want to get it into their hands. And whatever we can do to help people not only have Bibles, but read them and understand them and engage with them, and then for the Holy Spirit to use that to change their lives and to bring them into deeper, more fruitful relationship with Christ. I mean, that's why we're all here.
Because it's going to change their lives if they'll read it faithfully and seek God's understanding of it. You can understand it.
Simply put, it looks like this is how the Bible happened. God revealed himself to people in the distant past, and they wrote down those things, which came to be rightly regarded as scripture. It was important, so a whole lot of people copied it, and because of the thousands upon thousands of copies by hand that occurred, there's some small variants that emerge between them. They're not hard to trace, and scholars can go back and look at all of that, compare notes across the board, and come up with an original language version of the Bible that's reflective of what was written down in the first place. Then, more scholars get together and translate that into various modern languages, in this case English, and after that it becomes the job of a Bible publisher to figure out what editions of Bibles to make, what kind of things people might be interested in order to get the text in front of people. That involves all kinds of things from editorial work, layout and design work, proofreading, marketing, distribution, but the end result is that this gets into somebody's hands, and that leaves only one step left in the story of the Bible, and that is for somebody to pick it up and actually put eyes on the thing. Tyndale is cool, Jim is cool, Amy's cool, they're all cool. Everybody was super awesome, and this was a gigantic chunk out of their lives and their time to host us together and open up their whole process. They're a nonprofit that does this because they want to get Bibles in front of people and provides work to the people who you met here. So it's a win-win all around. I really enjoyed my experience with them, and I'm really grateful that they were willing to help me flesh out this story and have this conversation with you. Hope you found it to be fun and useful as well. If you like this kind of content, I'd welcome a subscription. And also, as always, a huge thanks to the patrons of this channel who make it go at patreon.com/TMBH. All right, I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour. Let's do this again soon.